Hello, and welcome to the Build Your Own Band podcast, the podcast made for independent artists who want to grow their bands in an organic, purposeful, and self-determined manner. I am your host, Vince Solaveri, and thank you for joining us today. Today's episode is official episode number 2, and I have a guest that I will introduce in a moment who I'm very excited about. But firstly, I just want to thank everybody who tuned in to the first official episode. The last episode was with Luke Bentham from The Dirty Nail, and thank you to everybody who listened to it, reached out to me, gave me your thoughts, opinions, even constructive criticisms. I really didn't think that the reception would be so great off the bat, and I'm very fortunate that people enjoy that episode. And I'm really stoked that you're back for a second one. I'm super excited to share today's episode with our guest, Davis Maxwell, who is a producer, mixer, engineer. He has worked with bands like Mile End, Wayfarer, Last Wretch, and he plays in the Albert Hoffman's World Peace Project and a band called Weakness. As of last Friday, August 8th, Albert Hoffman's World Peace Project released a new record that's streaming everywhere. It's an incredible record. I've said it to Davis multiple times. He has officially created what I call perfect music. So if you enjoy perfect music, please check out Infinite Virtue by Davis's band, Albert Hoffman's World Peace Project, and check out his entire discography. He's an incredibly talented producer and engineer and mixer. He's local to the same area that I'm in, and I feel just so fortunate to have someone as talented as him working in the field that I work in. And for a long time, I felt like when I would work on things, I would never have someone to bounce ideas off of. And when Davis moved to town and we started hanging out, I feel like his expertise and knowledge of the world of producing music helped me so much. And we have a great rapport together. I love just chatting with him about music and producing and mixing and all these things. And I feel like we share a very similar philosophy. So there's a reason that today's episode is 2 hours long. Before we dive into the episode, I want to talk about one thing that Davis and I stress pretty hard in this episode, and that is the concept of demoing your own music. A crucial step that I think a lot of people overlook is doing it yourself and recording your own band. Maybe not for the finalized version of your record, but just to hear what your music sounds like recorded and to properly arrange your song before you hit the studio. We get into the importance of demoing in this episode, so stick around. But for those of you who are interested in demoing your own music, I have a brand new project that I am launching today. So if you go to vincesolaveri.com/template, you'll be able to download a free demo template in which I created from scratch for all your major DAWs. So for those of you who have slight home recording experience, this is made for you. I made this template in Pro Tools, Logic, Reaper, Ableton, and even GarageBand. Asterisks beside GarageBand, it's a little limited compared to the rest. But essentially what this demo template is just a session file that you can open in the DAW of your choice and basically plug in your guitar, plug in your microphone, and just record into this already mixed template. You don't have to fuss around with mix presets and adjusting faders and compression settings and all that confusing stuff. Everything is already baked into the template for you. It's basically like meal prepping for music. You just launch into the session and start recording your song. I've taken care of the rest. These templates are made with completely stock and or free plugins, so you don't have to spend a penny to get basically professional quality demos right out the gate. So visit vincesolaveri.com/template to learn more about this and download it for free. All you'll need to do is click a button, put in your email, and you can download it immediately. And if you do download them and use them, please reach out to me and let me know how you like it. Is it good? Is it easy to use? Are there improvements that I could make to the templates to make them more user-friendly? Please let me know. If you're at all curious or concerned about the quality of this demo template, just note that the intro song that you heard at the beginning of the podcast was made with this very demo template. So enough of me rambling about downloadable assets, although I'm very excited about that project. Let's launch into today's episode with Davis Maxwell, a dear friend of mine. I hope you really enjoy this conversation. And without further ado, here's the episode with Davis. Welcome to the show. Welcome, Davis Maxwell.
Do you do a show introduction on this show?
It's gonna happen eventually.
Nice.
It's going to happen far in the future.
Yeah.
Maybe one day when I can do my hair and get in front of a camera and do show introductions, I can. But today, I will introduce who you are. You are Davis Maxwell producer extraordinaire. We're here at the lovely Schoolhouse Studios. And are we in Hamilton or Dundas?
We're in Dundas.
We're officially in Dundas, Ontario. I have quite an affinity for Dundas. My cat is from Dundas. She's lovely. She just came from down the road. But yeah, I'm very happy to be here, and I'm happy that you're here and that we get to chat making records.
Yeah, I'm also happy to be here. Yeah. I'm normally here.
You're literally.
I'm happy that you're here. Yeah.
The walls are caked.
Happy to have you.
Yeah. Well, I'm thrilled to be here. I wouldn't say that I have too much experience or history being in this studio, but I will say that when I first started out about 10 years ago, probably around this time of year, 10 years ago, I came here for an internship interview with Nick. Shout out, Nick.
Nick, Gin.
I was going to say, is it hard G or soft G? I'm not too sure.
Yeah. Our dear friend.
Yeah, and it went nowhere, and it has nothing to do with him. It has really nothing to do with me. It just never actually panned out into anything. But it was really cool to step into a studio like this when I was 19 years old, just being like, whoa, this exists like in my hometown, sort of. So it's fun to be here, and it's amazing to see the growth that it's had, especially in your care.
Oh, thank you so much.
If you want to touch base on how you came into play in the studio.
I've known Nick for a long time. Nick is a dear friend of mine who put this place together with a business partner, like a studio partner of some kind. And Nick and I played shows together. We're both drummers. And when I needed a new spot to start recording at, I just sent him a message and asked what was going on with this place. And he was still working here at the time. And so I just brought all my stuff up. There's some pictures of when I brought my stuff up, and we had because this is some local studio lore, but some
inside baseball.
Yeah, some inside baseball. At the same time that I was moving all my stuff here, Scott from Cancer Bats had a mixing room here and had tons of amps, and so there are some pictures of when I got here where this whole place was just you couldn't move. You couldn't move. There was stuff everywhere. Anyway, but anyways, Nick and I worked here together for quite some time, and then he's decided to take a break. He's still got bands on the go and stuff, but just step back from this place a little bit, and it was just the right time for me to start working here, and I'm super happy that I took the opportunity. And can we swear on this podcast? I fucking love this place.
He fucking loves this place.
I fucking love this place. Yeah, it's great.
I could tell you love this place because I could tell the amount of work that you've put into it since you've kind of established yourself here. Because I've been to the studio on and off over the years, in its different iterations, and it really feels like coming here. It feels like the workers' studio. You know what I mean? It's far from gross in here. It's far from a terrible studio, but you walk into this place and it looks like a place where people are actively making music, I know what you mean. It feels like a place where you come here to work and make a killer record. And, for those of you that don't know, where this studio is, it's kind of out there. It's in the country sort of. So you have a little bit of disconnect from the city and the bullshit of life. You can kind of just come here and just live in the
focus
record.
On the stuff you're working on, the tunes. Yeah. I mean, and it's nice. It's right off the 403 and everything. So
that means nothing to me. I don't drive.
Yeah.
But
it's, I like it.
Of the many studios in Hamilton, I've always liked this place. So.
Thanks, man.
I've told the story to you off the record, but I'll say it on the record that when you started working here and working out of Hamilton or the Hamilton area, I was like, oh shit, there goes my career.
Oh no.
Because I was I not to sound too arrogant or whatever, but I have a pretty high standard of engineers and producers, and especially in Hamilton, which is where I live and breathe, and where the music that I work on lives and breathes. So I have a super high standard, and I kind of felt I'm the only person here that's doing a particular sound. And, I felt like my name was traveling in ways that were healthy for my career. And then you stepped in and I was kind of like, oh, he's so much better than me at the things that I do. I'm just dead fish in the water. If a band knows what's right for them, they'll work with Davis.
I appreciate that.
I felt that for like being scared for like a minute. And then immediately I'm like, no, this is sick. I just thought it was so awesome that someone as good as you was in, the city making music. And we definitely work in overlapping genres. And it just felt good. And it felt like healthy competition. And I felt like when you started working out of here and certain records came out, it felt like it lit a fire under my ass of like, if I'm going to compete in any way, like the next thing that I put, it has to sound as good or better than what Davis is doing.
And I think it was around that time that the distorted vision thing came out, which sounded fucking insane.
What a happy accident that was. I've never been able to recreate it.
Oh man, I hate when that happens. I hate when you like dial in an insane sounding thing.
Yeah.
And then you're like, ooh, I'm just going to take this methodology to the next one. And it doesn't hit the same. You're like,
no, it absolutely doesn't. Yeah, there's so
much left to learn.
And that's a band that I feel like we've both worked with, and we can both attest to like the talent of the people who play in Cohesion. Cohesion is who we're talking about, who probably at the time of this episode's airing, I think they'll no longer be.
Last show this weekend.
I think so. So shout out to Cohesion and everything that they've done for me, for you, for the hardcore scene in Ontario in general. But yeah, it felt, I don't know, I felt like my work as an engineer and producer got better when you started working in the city.
Oh, thanks, man. That's very humbling to hear. Damn, I appreciate that. And yeah, I definitely at the same time, like when I moved here, I was like, I have people like you and Sean and, it's like that whole crew of guys. I was like, I have to be very good. You know what I mean? Like you cannot, the amount of quality engineers and producers and people in the audio scene around here, it's insane. It's like, so I'm very happy to be, like off in my own little corner doing my thing, but to like, be on the vibe with everybody. And sure. I feel like, we're all just trying to make things sound the craziest we can make them sound.
And there's enough to go around,
Oh my God.
Kind of like scarcity mindset, like I think naturally sets in with anybody who's like maybe self-employed or independent and whatnot. And then, I feel like a lot of people kind of, have their backs up against the wall, just like no one can touch my shit. Like no one can get into my zone because this is my clientele or my this or my that. And then, I feel like that type of mindset just closes doors and opportunities for you. And then when you go in the opposite direction and realize that like making connections with people who either work in the same area that you do or something similar, or, maybe have a different mindset than you that maybe clashes with your creative mindset, like hanging out with those people and talking with them and like understanding what they're about is so much more fruitful for your like creative endeavor in the future than if you were to just like be in your own corner and just like have all your guards up, you know what I mean?
Yes.
So suffice to say, Hamilton and Southern Ontario in general has a lot of talented people to work with.
Yes.
But yeah, I feel like the conversation that I wanted to have with you was obviously about making records. And I feel like in conversations that we've had in the past, just hanging out, we have very similar, I guess, kind of ethos on how to make a record.
Cool.
And like the best way to do that. And especially working in similar genres of heavy rock music or hardcore and stuff like that. We work with a lot of bands, and you can really tell when you're in the studio and magic happens. And it feels like magic in the moment. It feels like, oh, the stars are aligning and this and that, and this is the best thing that I've ever worked on and this and that. And then you kind of realize after the fact of like, well, it might not actually have been magic all along. There's an element of magic in all good music, and I firmly believe in that, but I also think there's a huge element of preparation, huge element of like getting your ducks in a row to execute what you need to execute to create the best
Yeah.
possible. You know what I mean? So,
1,000,000%.
yeah. And I feel like I want to ask you, before a band steps into the studio doors, what is your expectation? What's your best case scenario? And what's your worst case scenario? And feel free to share anecdotes if you have them, but if you care not to go into details, you can definitely just talk about the general.
We'll keep everything, names will be withheld.
Yeah.
People in places will be, left, whatever. Dude, we could talk about this forever. I don't know how much time we have, but I hope we have
until the power runs out.
Okay, cool. Until it's bedtime.
Yeah.
Man, I don't even know. Oh my God. Here's the thing. When you're breaking into something like that, and I don't mean to just immediately be like, here's my fucking whatever.
Give me your whatever.
Yeah. This is my whatever is that there are so many things that go into, okay, no, I'm not even fucking, let's just do the fast version of this. When a band comes into the studio, the best case scenario is that the band has all their songs written, and not just written, but like organized properly. Sorry, I'm going to move this up a little bit. Organized properly. Arranged in the sense that like, it's not just like, oh, we play this riff 4 times, but it's like, these are the elements that make up this riff. And like, this is how we're making each part hit the hardest. And this especially comes down to drums. Like I play drums.
Yes.
You play drums.
I have.
You understand drums.
My brother is a drummer, professional drummer.
Yes,
so I feel like working with him.
Is that Matt?
Matt Solaveri.
I haven't met Matt.
He's great. He's the best drummer I've ever recorded. Probably.
Damn. Big ups to Matt. Okay.
Shout out to him. Shout out to his band, the Red Hill Valleys. They're doing great stuff.
Excellent.
But yeah, my standard for drums is super high because of living in a house with him throughout my entire childhood.
Oh my God, yes. So when I start a record with any band, I want to know if they've figured out how all of their riffs are going to hit the hardest. And like if they've done that work in advance, that's amazing. If you have tempos in mind, like if you have tempo maps and like understand how to like do tempo changes and all that stuff and get all your click tracks sorted out, and you've been practicing to those click tracks and like are ready to make it hit properly, And if on top of that, you have recorded yourself doing that with GarageBand or something like that, just literally one mic on the drums, whatever. And you're just making sure like, okay, this is my drum part. Does this actually hit properly? Is this making the song move forward? This is my riff. Like, do these notes feel powerful, or is this just the first thing I came up with to like fill a 30-second hole in this song? You know what I mean?
Is there purpose to these parts?
Yes. That is the kind of stuff that to me is like dream scenario. And you'd be surprised. Like, I feel like bands nowadays are pretty on the ball with a lot of that stuff, or at least they understand that if they haven't done that, they have like a guilt about having not done that, where they're like, we're not, and then, obviously the worst case scenario would just be if you didn't do any of that.
Yeah. You came in with nothing. You came in with your instruments that don't stay in tune.
Yes. You came in with just the idea of a band. You're like, we're a hardcore band.
Yeah.
And then you're just figuring it out, which has happened, and that's part of the process. And here's the thing too, if I may just be so bold. The best case scenario is when a band sets realistic expectations for themselves and knows. Sorry, I gotta adjust this one more time.
He's an audio
Please don't
engineer.
kill me. I'm a fucking yeah. Oh my God. Oh, but how perfect is that now, right? If that's fucking up the shot, send me to jail. I don't know.
Yeah, your mouth is covered, so I can just overdub whatever you say with an AI version of you.
Yeah. Please set that expectation. If you're a band and you're going into the studio with a guy, it is literally 100% fine to show up with, this is just my opinion, to show up with no songs, no music written, nothing ready. That is completely fine if when you talk to the guy you're recording with, you're like, we have nothing ready and we just want to build a thing from scratch. If you do that and budget for that to happen, that's one of the best ways to make a record. It costs really fun that way. It costs 10 times the amount of money as if you're prepared.
Yeah.
Because you have to pay for all the time it's going to take to write and rehearse all of these songs. Absolutely. You know what I mean? But if you want to do that and you set that expectation, that's fine. It's just when bands are like, yeah, we want to book a weekend of time, and then they come in and just have nothing.
Yeah.
That is the sadness.
Yeah.
Anyways, that's my, yeah.
I 100% agree with you. I knew I would. I knew I'd agree with you. And I think that, when you said it, maybe we can call that rule number one of like set the expectations of making a record and communicate what it is you're trying to do before you pay a down deposit, before you, even book days, because at the end of the day, like us as engineers and producers, like we want to know as much information about the projects as possible.
Wait, am I allowed to hit this on the fucking podcast? Is that?
There's no rules.
There's no rules.
Aforementioned sponsors
don't exist.
Do not exist.
Okay.
But I'm open to most doors. So full disclosure. But yeah, like the studio is what you want it to be at the end of the day. But also at the end of the day, like there's only so many realistic opportunities and scenarios that you can go down that, like, if you're a fan of Knocked Loose and you want your record to sound like Knocked Loose,
the fully powerful, like perfected,
like the perfect
thing.
Heavy sound,
Yes,
if that's like, this is what I want to do and this is what we want to do. And then you reach out to a studio that does indie rock and the kit is like a 60s Slingerland with a bunch of tape and a wallet on the snare and all these jazz cymbals, and the engineer, has never heard high gain amps in their lives, and you show up with like, flat wounds on your bass and stuff like that. Like there's so many fundamental things going wrong that's, I wouldn't even say make your job harder, but almost make your goal an impossibility, versus you booking a session with a producer that has a long credits list of records that sound like the thing that you like. And, they may be slightly out of budget, or they might be out of town, or, all of these kind of caveats of why that might be the harder option. But at the end of the day, like if you work with that person, the likelihood of you getting the thing that you have in your head is like almost 100% greater of a chance that you're actually going to, fulfill that thing. And I think bands setting that expectation up front and figuring out like, what do we want to do? What's our ideal scenario? And then figure out how to get there. I feel like this is your route to success.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like knowing where you want to go. Like it always seems like such a trivial question whenever I'm talking to bands, but it's like usually when you listen to a band that has like, sorry, now I'm speaking from a producer's mindset, not like from the band's perspective. But it's like when a band hits you up and they want to do something, right? And it's like you're checking out the demos. It's like, okay, cool. Like I can get a vibe for what kind of songs you're making. Like what kind of record do you want to make? Like how do you want this to translate through a recording? Do you want the Knocked Loose, or do you want the, His Hero Is Gone or whatever? You know what I mean? And to me, it's like if you want the Knocked Loose or the Converge or whatever, hit up those guys. Yeah. Like, and I don't mean this in like a pedantic or like insulting way at all. I literally mean like, you have no idea how affordable some of these options actually are. Like if you want to go make a record with fucking, Kurt Ballou or, Greg Norman or whoever, message those guys and ask.
Most of their Instagrams have an email
literally
to their manager
Like it is not impossible to get in touch with these people that have done your favorite records. A lot of them are in the same business of just making money by making records. Like they want to record bands, you know what I mean?
Independent contractors themselves,
And at the very least, even if, whatever, it's like at least now you have like a budget reference. It's like, okay, it's going to cost me, 10, 15, 25K to like go make an album with whoever, and get it all professionally done up or whatever. It's like, okay, now you know that when your friend is like, okay, we can do this for $1,000 or whatever, it's like your expectations have been set for what's about to happen.
You are that dollar amount away from the thing that you want, which
is not to directly correlate, dollars to value or whatever. But
I think there is something to be said of just like when the budgets are higher recording with certain producers or at certain studios, like unless the producer's an asshole and is just trying to gouge you, 9 times out of 10, there's a reason why that dollar amount is set in place. And there is a loose correlation between the amount of money that you're paying and the quality of what
Totally.
you're doing,
Absolutely.
you know what
Yes.
I mean? And sometimes it just comes down to location of just like, if you're making a record in Hamilton where the rent prices are X amount compared to making a record in Toronto where rent prices are double that amount, like
totally.
that overhead is being factored into what you're doing as well. Like at the end of the day, the reason why a thing costs the way it does is to pay for the overhead, pay for the people that are working
to make
on
it all
the thing.
happen.
Yeah, exactly. So like if you're trying to make smart money decisions, like recording with a expertly talented, great engineer that lives in, I don't know, Orangeville versus New York City is probably going to have a pretty big effect on like
on your overall budget.
Yeah, exactly.
Totally.
And you know, it doesn't have anything to do with the skill set. Just because that person works in Orangeville or whatever doesn't mean that they're bad or if anything, they're probably really great. But
if you can hold it down, in frickin' Smithville, Ontario or whatever, it's like
it doesn't matter.
Yeah, you're killing it. Good job.
Yeah.
You know?
So I feel like thinking about, you know, when you get an invoice or a quote from a producer or an engineer, like, you know, kind of sit down and think about it for a second of just like, you know,
as a band, kind of try to figure out like, where is that money gonna go when I'm, you know, going to, you know, fly to LA or whatever the fuck, or, you know, doing whatever, or not flying to LA. If you're like, you know, making a record around town, you got to figure out like, okay, cool. Maybe I'm going to like, you know, take some of this money that I could be spending on Crazy Guy and just put that into like buying some, you know, a nice, drum heads.
Yeah.
That's the thing that no one buys, but that's fine.
Strings and drum heads, which brings up an important point as well of just like,
oh my God, instrument maintenance pre-studio.
Well, something, and I feel like you probably, we're sitting with it's probably out of frame, but a beautiful Tempest drum kit, right? To the left of us.
There it is.
And like we as producers and engineers, like we know what sounds awesome. And I feel like I have the best recording experience with bands that walk into the studio as a complete blank slate of just like, I trust you. What do you think would sound best? Here's my reference. Here's what we're going for. And what can we do with your ear? And I'm just like, well, let me show you the world. Like there's so much of what we can do.
Yes.
You know, like I'm almost sometimes more preferable to bands who show up with no gear at all versus a band that is so rigid to, no offense to anybody who uses these drums, but like a Pearl export kit with like heads that have been on there for 20 years and broken cymbals and a drummer that's so unwilling to use anything different. And they're just like, we have to use the thing, or just like, well, what am I here for? You know, like if this record making process isn't collaborative and there's not any push and pull of like, you make some decisions, I make some decisions, and we come together to make these decisions, you know, as a unit, then like you can buy a microphone kit and just do it yourself. You know, like if your mindset is so rigid that anybody suggesting anything aside from what you're comfortable with, if that's the only way that you're willing to go, then like, you know, that DIY might be the option for you.
I mean, for a lot of bands nowadays, that is one thing that bands should consider more of. And every band that I record, I like find out there's always a person in the band that does the demoing, the like, you know, the idea arrangement for that band. And I always have a conversation with that person and I'm like, hey, what's your demo setup like? You know, and we just talk about what, and maybe, you know, I can help them solve a couple problems with like, oh, this is like, I use this, but it's always buzzing. And then you can just help them suss out a couple things, you know, get it all, whatever. And then, you know, eventually the conversation gets to like, have you considered recording your band? And a lot of times, you know, people just kind of brush it off as like, that's a lot of work, you know, and it is, it's a lot of work.
Yeah. It could be fun work, but I think, you know, it's work.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And at the beginning of deciding that when you're a band and you're like, we are going to make a record, a viable option and something that I would honestly recommend for more bands to try, just so you understand the mountain that you're about to climb, would be when you're ready to make a record and you've got your songs ready to go, go down to Long and McQuaid, and for $100, there's 4 people in your band. It's $25 each. For $100, rent yourself like an 8-channel Focusrite box, the Shure 8 drum mic, whatever, and just some decent headphones if you need them, or whatever you need to get sound out of some speakers, and try to record your own band. Like, I honestly think that just going into that, trying to record yourself will show you how crazy the process of recording is.
Yeah.
It'll give you an appreciation for the insanity. And this isn't to just like flex on people and be like, oh my God, like, wow, you know how to do this. You're so good. It's like, it's not about that. It's about like, when you start recording, first of all, you're probably going to come across a couple things that you love. Like, you're going to be like, ooh, this is a crazy experiment that I did that yielded a result that I enjoy, and maybe you can take that into your record or like into the next phase of your, demo development or whatever. But beyond that, it will just teach you like the fundamentals of like, okay, this is a crazy thing. Like drums, like just trying to record drums on your own. It's like, oh my God. Like, how do you,
especially if you're playing and engineering at the same time, it's like the equivalent.
Good luck. Yeah. Good luck. Yeah. But yeah, doing that, recording yourself and like getting a grip on just the basics, and I'm not saying like punish yourself for 2 days and do a bad job and then forget about it. It's like, take some time with it. You know what I mean? Like
that's the beauty of doing it yourself, is you can really spend as
much time as you need with it. Yeah, totally. And like that can lead to its own set of problems. But I think that recording yourself, getting a grip on just the fundamentals of like, okay, I think, in all the movies I've seen, like it goes drums, bass, guitar, what, you know what I mean? And you'll just figure out like, okay, something's weird about this, and you'll just start putting it all together. Recording yourself, I think, is one of the it's like imagine going around your entire life without looking in the mirror.
Yeah.
It's like you got to look in the mirror once. I say that looking like this, looking like an absolute pig human right now, just fucking.
Hey, pigs are cute.
But yeah, you know what I'm trying to say?
I understand completely. And always encourage bands to demo themselves at the very minimum. And, if you're willing to go down the route of, renting some, prosumer type gear to actually try and fully DIY your recording, like you're going to have such an incredible lesson. You might not have your record by the end of the process, but you'll have an incredible lesson that you've learned about what that process feels like and what actually goes into it. But even beyond that, like you don't have to go to that extreme to learn some of those
not at all
ideas of how recording works. Like, if you have a laptop, if you have a Mac, you can get GarageBand. If you have a PC,
if you have a phone with a microphone in it,
straight up, because this is a conversation that we had on episode 1, which I thought was really crucial, of just like when bands walk into the studio and they don't have any recording experience, even if they're really good players, even if they're really well rehearsed, all of those good things, at the end of the day, like the studio recording experience is so vastly different from how you play music in any other way, whether it's at band practice or playing a gig or just practicing at home. Like most people don't hear their band ever. Totally. The amount of clouds that part, and you can see the sun through them, of when you're recording and a band member's just like, you play that? And the drummer's like, yeah, I've been playing this the whole time. Like, interesting. I've never heard that. And it sounds funny, but really, like when you're jamming in a basement or your practice space or whatever, like those rooms sound like shit. And
the sound is flying.
Yeah, like they're not meant to sound good, and that's totally fine. But like to hear your playing in your songs under a microscope, like unless you're going to that degree of demoing yourself, you're never going to hear what those songs sound like until you walk into the studio. And if you really want to book an extra day or two and find it in the budget to do the pre-pro with your producer and with your engineer, like I fully encourage that. But if you're trying to keep a few dollars in your pocket, doing as much of that yourself is going to save you so much of a headache. And
Absolutely.
Understanding what guitar sounds like when you have
a microphone,
like an inch away. Yeah, like that is an an entire different sound than you standing in front of your Marshall 4x12 where your speakers are shooting at your chest.
And also just like shooting around, you know, like so much of what you're hearing depends on the room you're hearing it in. And,
absolutely.
You know, it's like trying to translate. That's, oh man, I could talk about that. We could go off on that tangent, but that
off on a small tangent.
Well, I just want to bring up a moment ago, you just said something about how the studio experience is so unlike every other musical experience that band is going to have. Like the studio experience, like if you think of like rehearsal or just like playing a song, like in the comfort of your space as like the baseline experience, it's like shows and all that stuff way closer to that than going to the studio.
Yeah.
And it wasn't always like that, like, right? Like there were times when bands recorded ensemble style, which is a cool vibe and a good way to do things. But yeah, it's like, that's the thing is like, if you're anticipating, I guess we are kind of talking more about like the heavy side of music right now. I mean, that's like what I'm experienced in anyways, you know? And like
loud guitar genre.
Yeah, loud guitar, big bashy drum, that whole vibe. And if you are doing that kind of music, like you can record live as a band, but you have to really think about how you're playing what you're playing, because like the thing about, especially with heavy music and stuff like that, this is really for any type of music, but like this is a thing I find a lot in heavy music, and I especially find this with drummers, is that a lot of drummers play drums like how you would play Guitar Hero guitar, where they think that like as long as I get the hit off on the thing, it just counts as a hit and it's as good as if I intentionally you know, like made a beautiful sound with that, right? And it's like, that's not really the way this works. It's like you have to listen to yourself and understand what you sound like through your instrument. You know what I mean? And part of that is the tuning. A lot of it is technique, you know, like a huge part of it is technique, and just taking the time to like find a really crazy good drummer with beautiful technique and be like, all right, I'm just going to karaoke that guy until I develop my own style. You know what I mean?
Up. I feel like playing your instrument is more than just making sound. Like every single movement, every single thing about it.
You have to be intentional.
You have to be totally intentional, and it all matters.
And that's what being in the studio brings out. That is what the microphone brings out, is like
highlights all of those warts, if there are warts, or embellishments, if there are embellishments.
And that's the that's the difference between wart and embellishment. Is like, yes, the intentional aspect to the like making it sound commanding and powerful and full, and like, you know, not just like wisping out a crash hit by the skin of your teeth to get to the next D beat part or whatever. It's like you have to actually like listen to yourself and get it strong.
I'm 100% in agreement. Like I said, I knew I would be. So I'm happy to have this conversation. But, you know, we were talking about, before we actually started hitting record, we were talking about how like hardcore bands these days don't often know what hardcore sounded like in the, you know, the beginning of the genre in the 80s with bands like
or even
Cro-Mags
like,
or you know, Minor Threat or Bad Brains or all the greats of just like
AF.
So many of those bands had such awful, you know, recording practices, or they just were using what they could afford at the time because it was 1981. And
they were just
home recording didn't exist,
doing whatever. But
you listen to some of those recordings, especially Minor Threat and especially Bad Brains and like some of those heavy hitter bands, are just like, these records sound perfect because beneath the like tape hiss and beneath these like broken guitar amps that they were using and all the stuff, like the performance beneath it all was so unbelievably flawless and perfect and dialed in. And, you know, you could speculate wildly as to like how
it wasn't like perfect. It wasn't like fucking shred-tacular perfect. It was just...
It was dialed, though. It was like, you know, when
they knew what they sounded like.
When we talk about intention, it felt like all those bands were very intentional. A lot of them weren't. I mean, like, I don't think the Germs were very intentional. But in a way, the chaos of the Germs was probably, you know, something that at a certain point they wanted to embellish as well and use to their advantage. But, like... we talk about heavy music and we talk about like kind of like that sterile clinical sound of modern heavy music, which like I love that sound, you know, a lot of people do.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
why a lot of bands sound like that, but not every band needs to sound like that. And I feel like finding out what the band's identity is and what they're going for is very, very important. And when we talk about intention, you know, that to me applies to any genre, any musician, any form of art of just like trying to figure out like what is it that you're trying to work towards. And that goes back to the opposite of what I was saying before. I'm like, if you're trying to sound like Knock Loose and you go to the indie rock studio, if you're an indie rock band and you go to, you know, the metal studio, it's not gonna work out that well, probably. And not to say that bands shouldn't experiment, but
a couple great examples of that behavior though, like Zao or Zao or whatever, like they did that record with Steve Albini, which just like metalcore band of early 2000s, you know, legacy.
Yeah.
Who had like that total metalcore up sound and then did a record with fucking We're Just Ripping Live, you know. It's cool, but it's like, what the fuck? Like, it's so unconnected to, I'm sure, the sound that they were imagining in their minds when they were like, this part's just gonna fucking chicka chicka chicka. But then when it doesn't go off like that as you're doing it live, and you're just like, well, I guess it's just gonna be the weird way that we did it. You know, it's like,
and like intentionally weird is totally cool.
Fucking great.
But if you're trying to get to point A and the road that you're traveling on is point B, you know, for 99% of bands, that's setting yourself up for a harder time. And just figuring out who you are and what you're trying to do before you even like sit down at your drum kit to write something or whatever that thing is. Like, it's so important. And, you know, there's such a wealth of knowledge and documentation with you know, YouTube alone of just like, if your favorite drummer is insert name here, it doesn't matter. Yeah. You could just find 100,000 videos of that drummer playing. And if you want to sound like them,
you can figure it out.
Study them. You can, that's like, you can go to college.
That's what I did.
Yeah. A college level course of studying how, you know, John Bonham played drums, because there's so many videos and so many people talking about it. And like, if that is what you want to sound like there's such a wealth of information and knowledge out there of how to get there. It's just a matter of you like kind of putting in the time to learn what you want.
Yes.
and figure out, you know, what are the puzzle pieces that I need to put together to get to where I'm trying to go.
This is a funny thing to talk about, because this is like pre-product. This is like the fundamental, like your spiritual connection to music, basically. It's
straight up, like it all matters.
It does. No, it really does. And like, I hate to get all Ross Robinson about it, but it's like, you have to be feeling that while you're doing what you're doing. And like, the worst thing in the world is to just be like, I'm doing something sick and heavy without having ever paid attention to like how it sounds when you're doing that. And if it's coming off sick and heavy, or if you're just kind of like, you know, winging it out or whatever, you know, like,
if there's anything that I learned in my, you know, 10 plus years of recording music, there is no magic solution to anything. You know what I mean? Like, especially when you're a young engineer or producer or even musician, and you're trying to figure out like how to get where you want to go, there's so many mystified things of just like, oh, once I get this piece of gear, I'll get the sound that I want. Or once I don't know, record with this engineer, I'll get the thing that I want, or because they have this technique that I don't know about yet. And then you realize that once you get all these pieces that you think you need, you're not really any closer to where you want to go. And you just kind of realize that like, there's no magic microphone, there's no magic guitar head, there's no magic mixer out there. Like, no mixer will save a poor recording.
Totally. Or even worse, a weird song. Yeah. Like, if your song is weird, just expect weirdness. Do not expect it to hit crazy good if you're just like putting together whatever the first ideas you are. You know, a lot of times, hey, first ideas can be cool and a good jumping off point, but it's like, if you don't know how to connect the parts of your song to make something meaningful and like hard hitting, you got to start there before you get into before you even get into worrying about the mix.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah. That's like, yeah.
I mean, there's such a wealth of like raw multi-tracks on the internet of like big bands, and like, you know, that Nail the Mix YouTube channel has like every big name producer and big name band where you can just like dive into these sessions, and, you know, it costs a little bit of money to like get through the door to have access to some of that stuff. But if you have like $30 and can buy the you know, Tom Lord Algae mixes Angels and Airwaves thing, you know, like, wow, what you can learn by just from raw multi-tracks, you know, opening up
crazy.
A session.
Yeah.
You'll realize very quickly that like that song was mixed before Tom ever touched those tracks. Like, cause the performances were either performed really well or manufactured to be performed really well. It's hard to say, you know, how these things are recorded unless you're in the room. But, you know, once you get those multi-tracks in your session, you realize like the song is there no matter what. Like the production was already figured out, and
totally
Tom Lord Algae just needed to basically just bring up the faders, and it was
totally
there. And once again, it comes back to that idea of like intention, you know? And I feel like you can just do that on your own. Like I love working with bands and helping fundamentally bring the greatness of what they have, you know, to surface level. Like I love extracting that from bands, but I also love when a band does that work on their own and really figures out like, how do we build this production and demo yourself and really try to learn how to do pre-production. I think pre-production is, for a lot of bands, the make or break of whether your record is actually going to be what you want it to be or not.
Even if you don't have a conscious, like, we're doing pre-production step right now, like, even if you're not like, I don't know if that makes sense. Like, even if you're not consciously being like, okay, the record is ready, now we're pre-producing it. Yeah. It's like, just in band practice, like, having some time between each song to just like look at each other and just be like, okay, are we all playing this the same way? Like if you hear a mistake or something, instead of just like gliding over it, just stopping and figuring out what the problem is and, you know, putting things together with a little more confidence in the fact that like you're all hitting the same, like just making it all move in the same direction, I guess. It's like those are the things that like to me are the most important and the most overlooked a lot of the time too, is like just taking the time to just be like, okay, is that like a dotted eighth note thing or like a straight up like quarter note triplet thing? Like figuring out how, like, just the very subtle differences. Not that you need to even use that language. I'm not trying to gatekeep with like fucking music, because I have zero music theory knowledge. Like what I just said there could be the dumbest fucking thing that some like, you know, Jacob Collier is going to be like, this guy's an idiot, and that's fine. You're better than me. You can say whatever you want about me, you know? But, yeah, no, it's like, just take the time to like listen to what you're doing. And like,
it is what it is. And if you're at band practice and you hear all those details and you're just like, well, that's fine. I don't care. That's us. We're that band. And you lean into that. That's totally fine. But it's
no one's going to jail. Yeah.
Yeah. But like, removing the question mark of like, what is this and what are we doing and how are we going to get there? Like the importance of building a roadmap when you're making a record is really important, just like for your own sanity of like knowing what you're, because I've been in sessions, and I'm sure you have as well, where it's just like by day 2, like everybody's either falling asleep because they're so out of it and so exhausted from the process, or they're just like checked out and tuned out. And like so much of what I try to bring to the table when I'm working with bands is like, how do we make this a fun time? How do we make this a good time and a memorable experience? Because in my opinion, like, you could be the best mixer and producer and engineer in the world, and if the band sitting in your studio is having a terrible time doing it, when they listen to that record a year down the line, they may hear a great mix, but they're also going to be reminded of a bad time that they spent making that record versus like, you might not be the best mixer in the world, but if the band loved their experience working with you, like, that's really what matters most, because that's what they're going to remember. And even if there's like flaws on that record and it's not, you know, dialed in and super perfect, it's still like a perfect representation of what that band was doing at the time. And even for some bands, it's like a great just learning experience of just like,
totally,
you know, this might not be the perfect record that we intended to make, but we had a great time making it and we learned a ton of things from it.
Yes.
You know, and it goes back to kind of like budgets and setting expectations. Like if you're the type of band that can spend 2 weeks in the studio and afford it, and you want to explore every nook and cranny, that's totally fine too. But realistically, most bands have a limited budget.
Yep.
They're playing small shows. I don't get major payouts. And for independent bands, labels don't exist and you're self-funding.
Yes.
So it's like, do you really want to spend these really hard-earned dollars figuring it out, you know,
in the studio?
Yeah, when it's $500 a day versus
no, you don't.
$0 at your jam space.
Yeah.
You know, I feel like empowering bands to just do it themselves and figure out what is necessary to get the intended result is like,
and
you're
most
going to save
of the time,
thousands of dollars.
Yes.
Like literally thousands of dollars will
Yes.
stay in your pocket if you spend a couple extra nights at band practice figuring out if your chug pattern and the double kick pattern line up.
Yes, absolutely. Oh my God. Those are the crazy things that take forever and are that is like if you're a straight up metalcore band, I'm looking into the camera right now. Like I know you. If you're a straight up metalcore band and you're like, you don't have that stuff on lock. Okay. Like one of the best examples of this ever, Bury Your Dead, Cover Your Tracks. Like that entire record, incredible album.
Nothing sounds like it.
Nothing sounds like it. Weirdest production ever.
So odd.
But like really dry.
Yeah.
Super dry. But great. I don't know.
That's an entire other tangent of how good and weird that record is.
Yes.
But go on.
All I want to say about that is like, if you listen to the drums on that record, the drums barely match with what the guitar is doing. Like, I believe it was Mark Castillo played drums on that album. But anyways, that guy, he's just flying off the handle on those double kicks, just giving them the like whatever. And that record still sounds huge and great and good because he was hitting all the important elements.
Yeah.
You have so much leeway in what you play as a musician to like make the thing good. Like, it's not like you have to be hunting for the one perfect thing that makes your song good now. It's like, there's a billion squillion options out there to make your song good. You just have to like figure out what your style of that is going to be and then stick to it. You know, it's like that guy, he was like, okay, my thing is flying off the handle on the kicks. I'm just going to make sure the snares all happen in the right spot so that if it's a mosh part, it's like, you know, halftime. And if it's like a fast part, I'll switch it up between like D beats and fucking the Slayer.
Yeah.
You know? I don't know. It's just stuff like that to me that is that are the details that you can handle on your own. And really quick, I just wanted to go back to this. If you're a band out there that wants to make a record and you don't want to spend a ton of money on pre-production in the studio, it's usually cheaper to also just ask the guy making your record, like, hey, can we just give you some money to come to our jam space and just like help us demo it? Like, we love to help bands demo things. Seeing a band be stoked in their jam space, putting their own shit together is like, we're doing, you know, that is the
affirming to our career choice.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. That is one of my favorite feelings in the whole world. Like, we love doing that stuff. So like, don't be afraid. Like, I know I'm screaming like a very angry guy because I am.
He's very nice. Trust me. He's a great guy.
But we loved, everybody loves when it's good. You know, like everybody loves when it's good and everybody forgets about the pain in the ass it took to make it good once it's good, you know? So like, just do the damn thing, make it happen, make it good.
You know, it's cliche to say, but there are no dumb questions. And as a very like super anxious person that really thrives on things kind of being controlled and minimizing chaos in all aspects of my life, I lose sleep before a session when I don't know what I'm walking into and what the band can bring to the table. True. And many of times I'm just lying awake in bed just being like, I don't know what tomorrow's going to bring me. And it just like, it like scares the shit out of me.
Yeah.
And I love when a band just hits me with a brick wall of questions and a brick wall of just like their own misunderstandings of what the process is going to be like. Cause I will write you a novel long email answering every single question because I want the studio experience to be impactful and I want it to be efficient and I want it to be fun and I want the band to have as much information as possible before they walk into the studio doors. And, you know, I try and pepper in as much information as I can, but a lot of bands, you know, it's like, hey, what's the day rate? And I tell them the day rate, like, is this day available? I'm like, yep. I'm like,
okay, we want 3 days.
Yeah. And then I don't hear from the band for weeks after. And then I like, you know, end up messaging them and be like, so what gear are you going to bring? Like,
you know, what are you into?
Songs are you going to do?
What are we going for?
I have no problem like fishing for those questions because I need to know those things. It's a fundamental part of my job to know those things. But kind of like what you were saying before of just like, if you just shot Kurt Ballou a message of how much does it cost to make your record? Like there are answers to every question that you have. And when you're dealing with professionals, like they often have really good answers to your really simple questions. And that's totally fine. Like I love chatting with bands and I love giving as much information as possible because it just makes the experience so much more fruitful.
Absolutely.
You know?
And a lot of times you can learn some things too, you know, like people that are just a lot of times, like if there's a guy in a band that is like really dialed into one sound, he probably has a couple tricks that you've never heard of.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? So it's like it's great to be prepared for those things in advance and like just be okay. Let me ask you this:
Sure.
Do you yourself have a brick wall of text that you send in it? Like, do you have a pre-made brick that you send to the bands to be like?
It's not pre-made because, in my experience, a lot of bands that I work with fall into different categories.
Totally.
You know, like it's not every band that I'm working in with is like recording to a click or doing everything super multi-track. Some bands, it's just their nature to play live off the floor or something like that. But I do have a framework of like, here's are the things that I think are absolutely necessary to communicate to the band just so they know what's up and there's no surprises.
Totally.
You know, and those things include, you know, first off, budget and cost, because I've made that mistake many times in the past of like getting a band like locked and loaded or ready to make a record with me. And then I tell them the price after the fact and they're like, ooh,
I've had that happen a couple times.
That doesn't work for us, which is like fine. But like, that's my mistake for not communicating that stuff up front. So I try and be as upfront with like, what's this going to cost? Because if a band can consent to that, then everything beyond that point is easy. We could figure it out. Like I'm modular. We can
totally
make your record experience tailored to you.
Totally.
Like I'm not that rigid. But yes, there always is like at least 3 to 4 things that like I need to get locked down with a band before we step into the studio.
Totally. Yeah, me too. I have like a brick that I just tweak out.
Yeah.
Depending on like the specifics of like whatever our session is going to be and stuff like that. But I'm just always surprised when you send the brick and there's like no questions back or anything when everybody's just like, okay. And you're like, wait a minute, like that was a lot of information. Like, don't you want to just like make sure?
Yeah, you don't want to insult someone's intelligence and be like, did you read it?
Totally.
Like,
but it's like always read the information, everybody. Like always read the information. Make sure you know where you're going. There's a reason it's there. We want you to be as prepared as possible. Every good studio is going to have a brick that they tweak out and send to you to just be like, this is what to expect. You know what I mean? And it's
communication is key.
Communication is everything.
Process.
My God.
And
I am so guilty of that. Sometimes I just get tweaking on a mix and it'll just be like, I'll send it Friday. And then it's like Sunday and I'm like, oh, I gotta make sure I put this, you know.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
I feel like when bands are over communicative, like I'll give you an example. Like if I send out mixes to a band and I know they're not perfect, but they're like maybe 85 to 90% of the way there, but I know they're not perfect. And the band's just like, that's great. I'm like, oh no.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, I know there's 10% more of work to do here just simply because I'm not in your head and I don't fully understand your vision of the song.
Yeah.
I need you to give me feedback of what you want. And, you know, it's flattering to think that like I nailed this right off the bat, but I know I didn't. Compared to the band that like I'm sending off a mix that I'm like, you know, also 90% confident with, and I get mix notes that are just like paragraphs long, like right when I get that email, I'm like, oh shit.
Oh
this
no.
band fucking hates what I did. And then the problem is they're not using point form. If you like put everything that they're saying into point form, suddenly all those notes don't seem as long. But then it gives me like something to chase of like, okay, it gives me confirmation that this band is listening to what I'm doing and listening critically, which I think is really important because I want their critical feedback on what I'm doing. I want to have a direction to go. And then secondly, it just like makes my mix revision process so much easier of just like, well, I don't have to guess about, you know, where do you want the vocals to sit? Because you're telling me boost line at 38 seconds up half a dB, and just like those really hyper detailed notes for me personally, and I know a lot of people disagree with me, like I welcome those much just because I want to do best by the band. And also there's been times where I've sent out a mix that I've been so confident with and a band comes back just being like, it's good, but can we hear A, B, and C? And then I'm kind of like shitting my pants. I'm like, oh, I thought I nailed it.
Yeah.
And then I try A, B, and C, and suddenly I'm a better mixer now because I did those things, because the band is so, you know, in a lot of cases, this isn't true, but in most cases it is true that the band is so removed from the recording making process that they don't hear frequencies and decibels and compression and all that. They just hear what's coming out of their speakers and they're communicating what they're hearing.
Totally.
And that sometimes is such a refreshing way to talk about music, of just like, you know, oh, I want the guitars brighter, you know, and then you as an engineer or mixer are figuring out what does brighter mean, sometimes uncovers some really like creative ways to make that happen. Cause suddenly like, you know, boost 8K and that brighter doesn't work. Then you have to figure out a different way to do it. And because of these like, they're detailed notes, but they're not talking in music production language, it forces you to kind of think creatively. And there's been numerous times in which I learned like killer techniques on my own just because a band gave me good mix notes.
Oh, yes, totally. Yeah. Good communication and like thoroughly explaining what you're hearing or what you need or whatever, you know what I mean? Even in regular music terms, not like you don't need to know frequencies to be like, this needs to be brighter or whatever, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, that stuff rocks and helps. I appreciate I've had a couple bands where it's just like the 600 point mix note thing, and you're just like, all right, these people really have a vision that we're just gonna have to like dig down and find, you know, and it takes forever, but you know, I would say more than half the time they're right, you know, like a lot of times, sometimes you do dig all the way to, that's the other thing too, is like a lot of times bands out there, I think what you said earlier, flexibility is because nothing ever, like we're dealing with mystical energy when we record. When as a musician, you got to understand that like what you're doing is a fucking crazy magic trick. Like strumming a guitar and just having a sound blast out of a big cube behind you is like, that's...
I can't understand how that works. That technology was developed before I was born, so for me it just exists.
Yeah, there's a lot of electrons
this
involved.
This is basically,
you know?
no different than a tree to me.
Yeah, totally.
You know?
Right? It's like, goddamn.
Yeah,
it's like, you know, we are working with like highly sensitive and very temperamental, but also quantifiable, you know, elements, and it's a lot to keep track of, and you can get lost in the weeds really fast. If you have like this is for the bands out there. Like if I'm a band going into the studio, I usually try to make sure I have my big picture vision figured out. Like we want a dark, chaotic, you know, 1 or 2 records, like Calvaire and something else, early Converge, whatever, you know, we want that sound. Okay, cool. So then it's like, okay, as long as the right elements are hitting that way, it's okay that if you flip back and forth, your guitar doesn't sound exactly like the Converge guitar, or if you're, you know, like if your balances are different, if things are a little different, but it's hitting correctly, like that is what you got to keep track of. You got to keep track of like if it's hitting properly, and not get lost in the weeds of like, oh, I wish the snare had like a little more ring or a little less ring, or like I wish whatever the fuck. It's like, forget all that stuff. Like, even as a person in a band, you have to understand that like, and this is the thing that we go through is daily. like the people that we are sending mixes to are listening in a completely unrelated way to how we have been listening to that for the last day or week or whatever. And the people that they are putting that music out to are then going to, it's like the telephone game. You know what I mean? It's like there's degrees of interpretation that need to happen to get the music to the end person, the enjoyer of art, you know, which is what this is all about, which is so fucked. Is just like, we're just supposed to be enjoying art, you know? Yeah. But anyways, the whole point of this is like, it's okay if your record doesn't sound exactly like the new Nails record. Like, just fucking rock on, man. Like,
first off, you're not Nails.
No.
Second off, you're not doing it with Kurt Ballou.
No.
And just like,
and even if you are, it's not good. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
well, you know, use Nails as an example. You compare the sound of every Nails record back to back. They're all a little different. Yeah. And I think that's something that is often overlooked and not considered, is that every record sounds different. You know, even if it's the same band with the same engineer, like even song to song on a record, things sound different. And that's totally fine. Like, you know, as an engineer and producer and mixer, and I think of audio in a very, very critical way, there have been records that I've been listening to for 20 years. And it's only in the last year or two I realized that almost every song on this record was mixed by a different person. Yeah. You know, and when you actually flip A to B from song 3 to song 4, you're like, the drum mix changes completely.
Oh, no snare on this song.
Yeah, exactly.
Like how did I never notice that before?
When I've been listening, okay, the record that I'm thinking of in my head is Blink-182's self-titled record, okay, which is one of my favorite records of all time. It's very controversial, and if you don't like it, reassess your thoughts on music. It's a perfect record. This is not the first podcast that I've talked about this record on. It's that good, and I there's no way around it. It's incredible. Okay. But so there's like, I don't know, 4 different mixers that mixed all the songs on that record.
Nice. Yeah.
And if you like really critically go through each song and just like skip to the middle of each song and just listen to the drums alone, you'll hear how different each one is. And some of them kind of sound more produced in pop punk, and others sound like Albini drums. Like there's so much variation, but like I've literally been listening to that record for 20 years. Yeah. And I never noticed that variation. It always just sounded like a great front to back record to me, you know?
Yeah. Cause you're listening to music. You're not like, exactly, you know, you're not all hung up on like, oh, the fucking drum balance is different.
Yeah, and I think that's something that as engineers and producers, we need to remind ourselves of a little bit as well, is not, you know, sometimes the excitement of music comes from things sounding different, or things sounding a little weird, or things sounding a little off. And we're so clinical about making sure every single aspect of every single record is exactly the same. Like, you might just be making a really boring sounding record.
Oh, 1,000,000%.
And,
yes.
you know, that's our responsibility. That's not necessarily the band's responsibility, but it's something worth considering.
To go back to something you said like way earlier, you were talking about how there is no one silver bullet thing that will make your record sick, that will make your whatever, you know what I mean? Make your mix slam as a band member, it will not, whatever. And I want to talk about one thing super quick, which is I feel like that philosophy is really important, and it's kind of lost on a lot of people, obviously. You know, like we all get caught up in like, if I have this mic, if I get the fucking Joe Rogan, my voice will sound amazing.
I'm gonna bleep that out.
Yeah. If I get the whatever, the Neumann, my rap will be amazing, or if I get my fucking, name a mic, or name an amp or whatever. Now my bass sounds incredible with the Mesa or whatever. And it's like, those things are cool and good, but 99% of everything is how you're doing it, actually. Like, I feel like the biggest sin for this, and I'm so sorry to keep ragging on drum stuff all the time, but I am a drummer.
They are the fundamental of
drums is
music.
Definitely the most overlooked element of any, like, and especially in the pre-production process especially when bands like do their own pre-production, one thing that is often overlooked is like how the drum part is affecting the riff and how that's contributing to like the vibe of the song overall. And I feel like this was me when I was 17. I went into a studio to try and like record with my band. And there was one song that we just couldn't do because I just couldn't get like my fucking double kicks to go fast enough for this part or whatever. And the guy we were recording with at the time got us a great, totally natural, like analog drum sound that, we were all pretty happy with and everything. And what I mean? But this guy was like a dude in my hometown that didn't know about like how to save it when someone can't hack it, know? And so we just couldn't do that song. You know what I mean?
It was just off the table.
It was just off the table. It was just like, well, I refuse to change my part. Like, I'm not going to simplify this to make it, sound nice and hard hitting. That was just my own ego getting in the way as a teenage whatever.
Yeah. Rule number 2, check your ego.
Check your ego at the door. Yeah. But, I couldn't hack it. And so I didn't get that song onto the demo that we were making or whatever the hell.
Yeah.
And that's an important life lesson that a lot of people don't get anymore, because there's almost like an expectation there that we can just wave a magic wand and like fix a weird sound or a weird performance, or like if you can't palm mute correctly, like we can just make them all have the same amount of ring out. And, you know what I mean? Like there's a million little things where it's like, and maybe you don't even notice that you're doing it that way, which is why it's so important to record yourself and hear yourself doing that. And I feel like, especially for like now, to flip it over to like people in our position, you know what I mean? It's like, how many recordings over the last 15 years, like once the Sneap Forum learned about gridding up drums as a baseline thing to do, it's like how many records suffered from just like a really mid performance that got quantized up to perfection.
Yeah.
And it just sounds weird and off balance because it's like bad drumming under this like perfectly manipulated thing.
Yeah.
And it's like you have to always pay attention to the sound that you're actually making. Like that is the number one thing, is like actually paying attention to like, does this sound in tune and in time and like powerful? And I'm not even talking about in the studio. I'm talking about like at the jam space. Like, like when you're just like chilling on the kit, shedding, post up a camera and play an AC/DC song, play Back in Black, and then just stop it and listen back and just critically, honestly be like, do all these kicks and snares hit nice and hard? And does the hi-hat have like that nice quarter note with the lighter eighth note act? You know what I mean? Like, does it, like, does it bounce? Like, that is the perfect word. I'm going to start using that word to describe.
It is literally like the technique is a bounce.
It's like a bounce. Yes, totally. It's like, I've never really put it into that term before, but yeah, like every instrument has a bounce. Like I've recorded guitar players that have great bounce where they just like, they're just in the pocket and it like flows out great. And it's like, those are the things that, and I got to be perfectly honest, a lot of the people that I record that have that great sound, they themselves are recording themselves at home and figuring this stuff out. Like it's almost a 1-to-1. Like,
well, it's like we're in the year of 2024. I started playing guitar in 2004. That's nice. How long I've been playing guitar. And I stopped getting good at about 2009. And I've been at that level ever since. Like practicing my guitar when I was a kid. You know, I went down to my 5:30 lessons on Wednesdays at Payne Music with Doug Murphy. Shout out Doug Murphy at Payne Music. And I went there and we learned songs, and he was a great teacher. And I feel like, you know, he was, you know, the fundamental knowledge and how I learned how to play guitar. But then I would go home and I would just put on the song that I'm trying to learn, and I would try and play along with it. And, you know, it's just my perfectionist brain that if something sounded off, I like didn't just accept it and be like, well, I'm not James Hetfield, so it's just going to sound off. I like, you know, meticulously tried to find out, like, why does my not sound like the on Master of Puppets?
Yes.
And I just like played with my hand position and watched videos because, you know, the LimeWire existed at the time, totally. And just tried to like really figure out like, how do I mimic the sound that I hear in my head?
Totally.
That's what practicing was like when I was that age. And then, you know, around 2011 or 2012, I was in high school and I'd gotten my first computer that was mine. Like, it wasn't the family computer.
Yeah.
It was mine. The family computer was important because our previous family computer had GarageBand, which is the reason why I do this as a career. When I got my first computer that was like in my bedroom, and you know, I could put the wallpaper as whatever I want. No one can tell me different. You know, it was like there was a version of Cubase 5 that was like the easiest cracked version of a DAW you can get at that time. That was a full-fledged DAW, and I had this tiny 2-channel M audio interface, and then I just started plugging in and playing, and I had this like knack of like needing to figure out how to make songs sound the way that they are. And I remember like being really into NoFX at the time, and the Separation of Church and Skate song that I love because it was on Tony Hawk Underground, greatest game of all time.
Oh my God.
Of them.
One of the greatest video games of all time. Tony Hawk's Underground.
Oh my God.
And this is not a Tony Hawk's Underground podcast, but it could be.
Become one. It will become one.
Like, that game fucked me up as a kid. You could get off the skateboard.
It was incredible.
You could get off the skateboard.
Every Tony Hawk game prior to that point feel like garbage.
Yes,
because it just felt limitless.
Yeah. Oh my God. It was Grand Theft Auto with kickflips. Like, it was incredible. It was the best.
Yeah, and the height of like, you know, the Jackass era. Like, it wasn't like Tony Hawk Underground 2 was when all the Jackass guys were in the game, and I feel like that was a little overboard.
And they had the level that was like Bam's crazy thing.
Yeah, it felt too unrealistic, but Tony Hawk Underground was like that perfect moment in culture in which like MTV and skateboarding and punk and metal, like, I don't know. It was just the perfect cataclysm of everything rolled into one game.
Absolutely.
I agree. That game is incredible.
And they went to Russia and crashed a tank, if I remember correctly.
They did. Yes, they did. That's how you lost your sponsorship and had to find your way back to America. I was sponsored by Zero at the time.
I always...
I had the coolest logo. Yes. But back to it, I remember... taking Separation Church and Skate by NoFX, and like, I'm going to recreate this song. And I had like a cracked version of Cubase. I had a cracked version of Superior Drummer at the time. I think it was just Superior Drummer 2. Okay. And I had my
Avatar kit, baby.
That's probably exactly what it was. And I had my like Pod HD 500 floorboard effects unit, like the Line 6 one.
Oh yeah.
And I just like got a tone on there, plugged into my M audio interface, and just recreated the song from the ground up without vocal, because I have no vocal. No one can sound like Fat Mike. He, you know, icon in his own way. Whatever. That's how I started to practice music then, is when I got a DAW into my hands and realized that, like, if I want to make my music sound the way that, you know, my favorite song at the time does, like, now I have to figure out how to do that, because it felt like the next mountain to climb. And I think, you know, that was over 10 years ago. I feel like if you're trying to get really good at your instrument, having the slightest understanding of the fundamentals of how to record yourself is the way you should be practicing your instrument.
Totally.
You know, and I think, and once again, we talked about it already. It's so easy if you just have your phone, or you have a laptop with GarageBand on it or whatever. You know, a Focusrite Solo is like $99, and you just plug your guitar right into it, and there's 1,000,001 free amp sims that you can get out there.
Yeah.
So like you're getting rid of the issue of like you can't say, oh, my tone is bad, because you're using the, Will Putney STL tone hub pack. Like, your tone is objectively good.
Oh, you have every option under the sun.
Yeah, exactly. So now you're left to figure out, like, why don't I sound the way Kirk Hammett does or whatever.
Yeah.
And I feel like that is like the 2024 modern way of how you should be practicing your music, at least with guitar, but even with drums, like a Apex mic pack and a
totally. Oh man,
just cam 16
iPhone camera.
Yeah,
literally iPhone. Because here's the thing with drums too. Talk about the bounce and all that stuff. With other instruments, it is a very subtle kind. Like it's like if your eye is not trained for it, it's really hard to know like what makes a palm mute zhuzh so. You know what I mean? Like
zhuzh.
Yeah, give it the. Do you know that?
We've talked about the zhuzh many of times.
Yeah, or the whump or whatever. Yeah, but. With drums, it's really obvious what the bounce looks like. Like if you look at like Thomas Pridgett, I'm trying to think of some hardcore drummers from now that are like that people could like. The guy from Tsunami has some fucking drum swag.
Eloy from Slipknot. I feel like is the greatest.
Well, that guy is fucking.
Yeah,
but I'm trying to think of like, like. Guys that people can
I only listen to podcasts and country music.
Yeah. So. The thing is, like, especially in hardcore and stuff, and this is not to throw shade at anyone in particular, but it is kind of the dregs of the rest of music that end up playing hardcore. So it is kind of hard to find. No offense at all. I'm not even talking about like hardcore. I'm talking about like what we call hardcore.
Yeah,
like,
just heavy music.
Heavy music. Yeah, fucking whatever. But the whole gist is like find a couple swaggy guys that play their instrument with swag. Guaranteed 1-to-1, the bands that have the craziest tone on their records have the craziest players in their band. Yeah. Like if you hear a fucking perfect guitar tone on a record, it's because that guy is insanely good at guitar.
Yeah, and they're probably just using a 51.
And they're probably just using
4x12 or
literally.
Like the gear is so simple.
The simplest thing.
There's no magic.
There is no magic thing. Some of the best drums, like Refused, Shape of Punk to Come, the drum sound on that record is like fucking 4 mics. Like it's such a simple drums. I mean, they probably use like 8 or whatever, but it's not like, it's not this crazy elaborate kick you in the face drum sound. It's like just so powerful because that's just how the drum sounded when that guy was doing that. Like he was just playing it like that, And when you watch him play drums, he has the swag. He's got the bounce. He just has like a nice flow, You got to find people that have what you're looking for
sure,
and literally just copy them.
Yeah.
Literally just copy them. Look at the dude from Baptists, like the Nick drummer guy. Like you want to go fast, you want to see what good, clean, fast drumming looks like, go watch that guy.
Straight up.
And then film yourself in the same position as the camera used on him. And then watch yourself and be like, okay, is my arm like, making a nice whipping motion? Or like, look at fucking Josh guy from Crazy. I don't know, there's a million crazy people out there that are so good.
And let that be, a confidence booster of like, there are a ton of
it's not impossible
out there, so you could also be a great player. Like it's not
absolutely.
Like there's this upper echelon of, human evolution of like
not at
great
all
players and you can't be like, you can be too.
Oh, to get on it, we're talking like 2 weeks of 20 minutes of practice a day to get yourself on track. Like we're not talking about like moving to a shed in the woods and like, playing 12 hours a day every day. Like literally, I'm looking at everybody right now. How many of you out there actually practice for just 20 minutes a day? Like that's all it takes.
Yeah.
Not even like an hour is awesome.
Yeah.
But 20 minutes just to stay frosty is like, to use a really cringy term, is it'll just keep you together.
And I'm also wondering like how many people, and I'm not trying to throw anybody under the bus because at the end of the day, like live your life and
do whatever. Life is hard.
Music might not be the number one important thing to you, and like that's totally fine.
But you're listening to a podcast by 2 people where it is definitely the most important thing.
Yeah, my landlord's wealth is built off my music career.
Yes.
Which is a struggle in and of itself, but that's neither here nor there. But and I'm guilty of it myself. There's a reason I make records and I don't really play in bands anymore because I didn't have the wherewithal to like, go to band practice and do all the things that I think a band should do and practice my instrument outside of band practice or playing shows. Like, in the times when I was playing drums in a band, like the only times I played drums
was at band practice.
Was at band practice.
Yeah.
And like, that isn't the time that you should be practicing your instrument. Those are the times that you should be practicing your songs with your bandmates, but
well, I would say there's a difference between practice and rehearsal.
Exactly. Like, well said.
It's
and I feel like a lot of people just treat rehearsal as the time to practice, but there's a lot of work that needs to go in, be like just on your own time.
Yeah.
To get better at the thing. And
again, not a lot of work, like some work, but not living in a monastery dedicated to the art of palm muting level work. Like just enough. Anyway, sorry.
Just having a level of dedication in your daily schedule or even weekly schedule to like just solely focus on playing your instrument and, finding something that you want to get better at and then figuring out how to get better at it. Totally. Just like the slightest bit of discipline will go such a long way. Yes. And I feel like, music in general is super competitive and heavy music is super competitive, that if you're trying to like make something of your band and your music career, like the slightest bit of effort, you'll demolish your competition. Not that that's like, I don't like to think that music is all about competition and crushing your competitors, but it's just like, if you really want to get to the next level of making your band like, that's a force to be reckoned with, like that little bit of, extra 10% of effort will it could be the difference maker.
Yes.
Straight
1,000,000%. Yes. And that's the thing is like, it's not a competition, but let's, like, I don't know. Everybody gets into music for like, I have a musical project that I've been working on for like almost 10 years. Mm-hmm. Still don't have my first record out with that thing yet. And it's like, I'm just doing that. The only reason I got a whole band together was because I missed my buddies and I just wanted to like rock on and have fun. And that is a perfectly reasonable, you go have fun, mister. Go have fun. Music should be fun. Oh my God. And even the high levels, that's the thing is like, I want to have fun blasting for fucking, 1,000 people at some crazy show, making it go insane mode. You know what I mean? Like to me, that's also pretty fun. And that does require, like, it's like music is fun and this is all good and whatever. But like, there is a certain reality check involved when it just comes to like, if one of your goals as a band is to like take this show on the road or like, play some cool big shows and like, or like make a mark or whatever, like if you're taking it seriously, I guess you could say. And again, this is not from me being in a band perspective. None of my bands have ever done anything because we don't have this mentality. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Which is once again,
completely fine.
Totally fine.
But if you are the kind of band where you're like, our goal is to tour 200 shows a year.
Yeah.
Okay. You need to practice. You need to figure out what being in tune sounds like.
Yeah.
As
simple as that sounds.
Like you need to do these steps and figure this shit out and really like, practice, like fucking just put some practice into her. You'll be fine. Yeah. And like you said, just doing a little bit of practice puts you ahead of 90% of bands.
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
Like it's not an impossible to reach thing, but it starts in the jam space and it starts in the woodshed, the proverbial woodshed.
And the thing about like records that sound awesome, like I'm a kid that grew up in the late 90s and early 2000s.
Yeah, notice how we haven't talked about 1176s or like the perfect bus compressor or fucking... You need 1073s to get a good drum. That's where good drums... It doesn't matter what you're playing as long as you're recording it with 1073s.
I'm going to go out on a limb here. This will sound very polarizing, but it's my show. I could say what I want. If you're a band looking to work with a producer or a mixer or any recording professional, and the questions that they ask or the things that they talk about are 100% gear.
You're going to love the SSL.
Yeah.
You're going to love that analog sound.
It's a red flag in my opinion.
Run for the hills.
It's because that's not what makes great music.
No.
To me, I wouldn't even say to me. I think it's an objective fact. The thing that makes great music are the people involved in making that music. It's the people who are writing that music. It's the people who are playing that music. It's the people who are recording that music. It's the people who are, putting that out on their label or taking you on tour. Like, it's the people involved that is,
and the participants that feel it when it hits correctly, and people are like, this is what I want to hear.
It's all about the people. Yeah, exactly. And it really is like a communal experience of making music and playing music, and all of, what makes it fun is comprised of the people involved. And I would say with 100% certainty that you've picked the right producer when you could take that producer and plunk them into any recording scenario and get the same quality result within like a 10% difference.
Yeah, totally.
Because ultimately the only thing that matters in your recording process, aside from what you as a band are doing, is the person who's in charge of capturing it.
Yeah, totally.
And, I discourage, and this comes from someone who works at a studio that I love.
Oh my God. Yeah, you were fucking glazing my place earlier. Boxcar is one of the coolest studios in Ontario.
That live room is great.
Oh my God. And Sean's OG of all time.
He's such a fundamental reason and why I make music, because he just worked on so many records that I loved growing up.
Oh my God.
He has such an incredible list of credits.
We're talking about the guy that recorded Cursed and Shallow North Dakota and TV Freaks. Oh my God. Yeah.
Yeah. He's
many cool things. Two Mold and
most recent Respire record. He did as well. Yeah,
Sean is the man.
Sean Pearson
recorded one of my bands.
It's true. Yeah. Coming from a person who loves the studio that I record at.
Oh my God, cool spot.
I don't think that's the reason why my recordings sound the way they do. It helps record in a room that has really big drum sound, and you could put room mics in. It sounds like Zeppelin. That's really awesome. But most of the records in my life that I made in my parents' basement.
I was going to say,
my shitty practice space. I hate my practice space. That place sucks. I want to turn it into a gym. I hate that place. But so many killer records that I've done that have some records that I've done in recent years that have gone the farthest and helped me as a career producer were done in that shitty room that's half the size, maybe even quarter of the size of the room that we're sitting in right now. Yeah. And it's not to give myself I'm the best in the world, which I'm all right.
You gotta be. Yeah.
I have a responsibility not only to the bands that I work with, but also to myself to make every single thing that I touch turn to gold, because I care that
make it the best
much.
It can be.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think that every record that I've, made and every scenario that I've made, I've just put 100% of my heart and soul into it, because I think that's what's necessary. So for anybody out there that's struggling of who do we work with? Don't Google recording studio in town. Just look, honestly, the only surefire way to make the best record you possibly can is look at your favorite records.
Yeah.
And then look at the liner notes and be produced, mixed, and engineered by blank. And then
you go talk to that guy.
Yeah, find their website or find their Instagram, and that will get you so much farther ahead than just looking at the studio itself. Because at the end of the day, if you're looking at building a house from scratch, are you going to Home Depot and being oh, well, this contractor uses this wood. We should use this wood. No, you're going to look at what that person has built in the past and walk through one of their houses and knock on the walls and be are these solid? And go through with an inspection and see the final product and make your decision of how you want to build your house based on the final product.
Totally.
And record making is no different. It all comes down to the people who are involved in making the thing.
Yeah, yeah. Find a person that you trust to make good decisions for you, because whoever you hire is going to be making a million decisions you're not even aware of. a
Absolutely. good engineer and a good producer will make the job look easy.
Yes.
And I think that's a huge part of it. And, I admittedly sometimes I get stressed.
Oh
You know,
my
we
God.
all do. We all have those moments.
Making records is hard work.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work. It's a lot more work than you might realize. If this is your first time going into a studio, you know, you have to, depending on the type of record you're trying to make, it's a lot of work. It can be daunting at first, but it should be fun, and it shouldn't be a slog.
No.
That's the thing, is like, it's sick. Like, making a record when you're on the right team and know what you're doing and have had all the time you need to practice and be ready, and then you're coming in ready to rock and it's like going good, buddy. Best thing.
Yeah.
Best, like, just, oh my God. It's like you feel like you're in the movie.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. You're
like,
watching, like, I don't know. I can't even think of a movie that depicts making.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. But like
Bohemian Rhapsody.
when you feel it, you feel it. It's a really amazing feeling when you're in the studio and you're just like, well, we're cooking today. You know what I mean? But also don't expect that that's going to be the feeling all the time. Like realistically, like it can be a really dry process.
It's not, you're not going to be feeling that when you're tuning.
Yeah, exactly.
For the millionth time.
Believe me, you're going to be doing lots of tuning.
Yeah.
You know, but some things I want to talk about as you know, we've been recording for almost 2 hours.
Oh my goodness
I want to get
gracious.
to a couple things of
Sorry, we've been wandering. I can take it off track, man. Beg my pardon.
I think we talked about a lot of amazing things today, and these subjects might be a little dry, but I think they're important to talk about for people who have questions of just like the reason why. Well, I would say the make or break of a lot of bands making their ideal record comes down to money, comes down to their budget.
Everybody has a budget.
And that is like 100% realistic expectation from any of our, you know, like one of the first questions that I asked in that like block of text that you send to a band is like, what is your budget? And I think it's really important for bands to figure out what their budget is and how to build your budget if your budget doesn't.
True.
Yeah. If it doesn't meet the requirements of, you know, if you want to work with X producer and, you know, you're a couple grand short, a lot of bands will just work with someone else instead of thinking, you know what, we could either do one song instead of 6.
Yep.
And make it the best song we've ever made. Or we just play a couple more shows and save a little bit
Just
more
wait.
money.
Yeah.
And, you know, like, I'm curious, how do you advise bands when it comes to budgeting?
I generally try to work within whatever a band has going on. This is just like my own thing, is like, if you're a band and you're trying to budget for making a record, definitely do not be afraid to ask.
Yeah.
Like, just ask around. Hit up some producers. Hit up your dream number one producer and maybe one or two under them, and just get some quotes and find out what that's going to cost. And then, okay, cool, that's cool. And then shop around town, see what people in your area that are doing cool things. If there's, you know, if your friend's band has a killer sounding record, find out where Vince lives in Hamilton and can record my band.
I can tell you my exact address.
You know, and it's not, definitely get that information. Don't just assume that you're going to need $1,000, $5,000, $10,000. You know, it's like, don't make assumptions. Just ask first. Find out the kind of ballpark you should be living in, and then probably add like $1,000 onto that, because you're gonna be like buying food, getting there and back.
Yeah.
You know, you'll need whatever else. I don't know. A lot of studios these days provide strings and heads, so you don't got to worry about that. But sometimes you do got to worry about strings and heads.
Sometimes you got to rent a couple things.
Rent some uncracked cymbals, you know, like expenses come up. So be prepared for that kind of stuff. And I always advise bands to figure out what they're trying to do with what they're recording. That is something you should think about before you get a lot of stuff together. Think about where you're trying to go as a band.
Yeah.
Like, if you are jamming with your buds and you have this 10-song prog rock thing that you're just like, this is exactly what this needs to be, and we need to fucking, okay, cool. Then you have a rock solid thing you want, and you can make your budget according to that. But if you're a band and you're, you know, it's like for a lot of bands, I don't know who I'm talking to, if I'm talking to bands or you right now or whatever, but this is just my own.
For the bands, the independent artists that trying to figure out the best way to manage themselves.
Yeah, totally. I don't mean podcast. I mean like, anyways, it doesn't matter. But what I'm trying to say is like, a lot of times, you know, you think your goal is to make a record, but it's like really that record is just a step to get you to what you really want, which is like, you know, we want to play LDB Fest, or we want to, headline a show at Lee's Palace, or we want to, do what, like, most of the times the record is just the thing you're using to get to where you want to go. You know what I mean?
I hate to reduce the record down to this, but it's promotion.
Yeah, basically. Yes. It's promotion for the show or what, or for the whatever, you know, but it's a record is really promotion. And so if you are in that kind of headspace and you're like, okay, cool. Maybe what you really want to do is just set aside a budget to do one strong single. And maybe you like the guy you're recording with and you want to go back. So you'll just do one song every 3 months for a year. You know what I mean? Yeah. And then you'll have like 4 singles to put out whenever you want. You can put out the first one and use that to play shows to make some money to pay for the second one.
Straight up. Yeah.
Keep that process rolling. You know, it's not an impossible thing. And you oftentimes don't need to spend nearly as much money as you think you need to spend. Like I don't know about you. I love recording singles, 2-songers, 3-songers. Like
I love it too, because I love sinking my teeth into like one thing and just being like, this is what we're focusing on. We want to make this one song as best as possible.
Yeah. And a lot of times that's all you need, especially these days. It's like, you know, if like I'm talking to the hardcore bands, of course, but it's like, you know, your demo, right? It's like your demo is like 8 minutes of music. Like any responsible, if you do your research, you can find a guy that'll put that together for you in a weekend and it'll sound fucking great. You know what I mean? It's like, it's not.
We've done it.
We have done it a billion times.
Thousands of other people that have done it as well. Like it's very common.
If you hate us, message us and ask for suggestions. We love to talk about, we love glazing other awesome producers and stuff. So
love.
Yeah. It's like, if you just are trying to play bigger and better shows and keep it moving, find out how much it's going to cost to record like 2 songs with a guy that kicks ass and has something that you really like. And then just blow your load on that and worry about the LP later. Yeah. Like if your tunes are good and it catches on and everything, you probably will be able to, you know, cover some expenses just off the shows and stuff. You know, it'll become less of a problem as you use the promotional tool to become more successful.
An incredibly good single that super accurately reflects your band is going to do way more for your band than a 12-song record that is mediocre.
Yeah. Oh, yes. So absolutely.
Keep that in mind.
Yes. Yeah. Like I would way rather, if our budget was like whatever, you know, I would rather, if we had enough money to record a whole record with like guy that lives in the same fucking building as me or whatever, or like fucking guy that has Grammys, you know, it's like, okay, cool. Let's just do one song with Grammy guy. And then, you know, if it fucking slaps, we'll be able to afford more in the future. You know, it all
rolls over and it all evens out.
Money is the hardest part of this shit. And that is also why I advise learning how to record yourself, not just from a self-flagellation standpoint, but also if you get good at recording yourself, you can save a lot of money. And I'm not going to lie, that was a factor when I started recording. I was like, God damn, I can't afford to go record with Joey Sturgis. I'm going to learn how to do this myself. You know what I mean?
And it's such a powerful tool to just like, and it goes back to the beginning of the conversation, of just like fundamentally understanding what it takes to make a record and what it takes to make the type of record that you want to make, because not all records are equal, you know, like there's a million different ways to do this process. And it's really important to find the combination of things that works best for you and works best for your band. Yes. And just take your time to figure that out. Like, you know, when we're talking about independent bands and local bands and whatnot, like there isn't a label breathing down your neck of like, you got to get this record done by this date. Like you're in charge of your own destiny, which is such a powerful thing that like, why not take your time with it. Why not devise a plan and truly figure out like what you can afford, when you can do it, and also exactly what you were saying before, but like, what do you need to reach the goals that you're trying to reach?
Yeah, totally. Think about the bigger picture. Where what are you using this record for? Are you using this record like to make your mom happy, which is great. Yeah, love that.
Love my mom.
Yeah. Or are you using this record to like, have people scream words that mean something to you back in your face?
Yeah.
All right, cool.
Yeah. Just figure out like what it all comes down to, purpose and intention of what you're doing. And that kind of segues into the last, there's a million things that we can talk about.
I know.
I'm cognizant of time.
Oh my God.
But one of the last things to talk about, which I think is fitting to be last because it is the last part of your record cycle, is where do you put it when it's done? You know what I mean? Like, the greatest disappointment to me in my record making career is when I, break my back trying to make this awesome record with this band that I think is really good. And then it's done. And 2 months later, it's just up on Bandcamp with no promotion. They make one post about it on like Facebook or something like totally. And then it's just, that's it. It's gone. And then that record just gets 56 plays on Spotify and then it dies forever. Like totally. It breaks my heart when I see bands make a decision like that compared to other bands that, are calculated with how they release their music and when they do it and the album artwork that they pair it with. And not that labels matter that much, but like sometimes that can just bring a new set of, eyes and ears to your totally. Project, and
totally.
I'm curious to ask you what do bands do with the record when it's done, and how do you make all of this time and money and energy and creative effort that you put into making this thing? How do you make it worth it?
Yeah, right. Right. That's the $60,000 question.
Straight up. And like, how do you make it go places that is going to increase? I hate using this word, but the value of your band, of just like, oh shit, we got to pay attention to this band. This record rocks so bad. Like, how do you get it into the hands of people that are going to love it and cherish it and share it with their friends and come to your shows, because that's really what it boils down to, is just like getting people in your fandom.
Yes. Right. Yeah. I don't have a ton of success with that, you could say. Like, I've had some bands that I've recorded go on to do cool big things and yada yada and stuff like that. But it's not like I'm no Howard Benson. I'm not like, churning out the Sirius XM playlist material or anything. But I think this kind of goes back to what we were just talking about a moment ago with the whole like single or album thing. It's like a lot of times you don't need to blow your whole load on a record. You know what I mean? It's like, it's a lot of if your band is not like, and this is why, I mean, there's a million ways we could break this down and I don't want to take a million hours to do this, but like
your top two.
Yeah, no, just like fastest thing. So I know nothing about digital marketing. I know nothing about playlist curating or how to do any of that. I literally have no fucking clue. Sometimes bands that I've recorded will message me and be like, we got on this crazy thing. And I'm like, oh, good for you. Like, I'm so happy that worked for you. But I don't know how they did that. I don't know if they paid someone to do that or hired someone to help with their or I have no clue. And honestly, it's none of my business. Like, I don't try to make that my business. I try to, if a band wants some pointers, the things that I always say are like, book a show and put the music out a couple days before the show.
Yeah.
Like, don't make it a record release or whatever. Just put your music out. Always make sure you have a show booked a couple days after you put music out. You know what I mean? Like,
that's when it's the freshest. That's when
people are going to care. That's when people are going to care for sure. The ultimate thing you can do is if you are fortunate enough to get put on a sick show, try to save your music for before that sick show so that, you look great when people know the words to that song or whatever. You know what I mean? It's like those are the little things you can do that will help. And for me, a lot of it comes down to, just knowing when to put out your music around when you have other stuff going on, because the music here's the thing is like, it's kind of weird, but it's like people only get into the music once they're into your band. Yeah. It's like people have to think your band is cool before they think the music is cool.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that's a good thing or a bad thing. And again, I'm not like a Hollywood guy. I don't know anything about anything. I'm a crazy person. But
my favorite crazy person.
Thank you. But I think that, you really don't need to stress so much about having the whole, like, I love how hardcore bands, the traditional fucking, demo 7-inch LP, maybe another 7-inch, we're done here. Yeah. It's like, to me, that is perfect. And that is the perfect, or like you can see how it goes through the more songs, it's like, that's the move. You don't need to put out half an hour of music right at the top. Like give people a taste of what you're going for.
Yeah.
Expand on it. And then if you have enough to say to make an LP, you're already ahead of most bands. You know what I mean? And then you can go ahead and do that or whatever. But
yeah, I think that's all incredibly sound advice.
I hope so. Man, I feel like,
I think just to touch on that for a moment before we wrap up is like, the entire package of your band truly matters. And we're talking a lot about the recording process, and we're talking about practicing. We're talking about all these parts that make your studio experience the most impactful that it can possibly be. But that's only one aspect of how your band is going to exist. Well, most bands, some bands might just be a straight up studio project, and that's totally fine. But for the other bands that are playing shows and using their record to promote themselves and kind of gain a little bit more traction, like, use what you learn in the studio to your advantage in other situations, especially playing live.
Yes.
Like if you spent a ton of time working out this intricate part and you feel like you're nailing it and it worked out in the studio and it's exactly how you envision, like, make sure you nail that part live too. Because if that part is that sick and everybody who's listening to that song was like, oh my God, you hear that breakdown? Like that breakdown is the craziest thing I've ever heard. And then you flub it live, you might
sadness.
It might everything that you've built up to that point might just bottom out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I hate to be that fatalist about it, but people aren't thinking about your music as critically as you're thinking about music.
Yes.
And most people are absorbing music purely for entertainment. And I think it's your job as a band and your job as a musician to provide that entertainment for people in the best way possible. However, that is, most effective for your band and however you want to portray yourself, just like you got to hit the nail on the head. And I've seen a ton of bands that I work with that, maybe didn't quite understand the fundamentals of their own band before they hit the studio. And then we hit the studio, they learn a bunch of things through the trial and error process of them making their first record. And then I go see that band live and I'm just like, holy shit, they're killing it right now. Like they nailed it and they took all that information that we discovered together and just applied it to their live show. And I know in my personal experience, there's records that I've heard, I'm just like, this is the best record I've ever heard. And I go see that band and it just doesn't hit. And I'm just like, I just like kind of lose interest. And the vice versa happens where I see a band live and they blow my head off. And then I go check out their record and I'm just like, oh, this
does not hit.
Yeah. And then I kind of lose interest, and I think it's really important to like, whatever you're investing your time and energy in one aspect of your band, like you should really be rolling that over into the other aspect of your band.
Totally.
And make it just like a
take a holistic approach.
Exactly.
Take a holistic approach. Like, yes, the studio and shows are very different situations, but the perfect example off of that is like around this time last year, I made a record with that band, Mile End, from Brampton, Ontario. Shout out to Mile End.
The greatest of all time.
Oh, love them to death. And they spent more time tuning than a lot of, like, they just needed work on tuning. And like, again, love you all to death so much. And we spent that time. We didn't just like fucking slough it off. We were like, okay, we got to fucking put her in tune.
Yeah.
And did all this shit, just fucked around, heavier strings and all this stuff. got it to where it sounded just beautiful and in tune, and they understood like how to tune, and it was, you know, started going great and everything. And a couple weeks ago, I went and saw them at their record release show in Brampton, Ontario.
And shout out Brampton.
Man.
They got a great mall.
They got a great Bramalea City Center.
Yeah.
Man, they sounded so good. I was so stoked. It was like one of those moments, exactly like what you're talking about, where it's just like, you were paying attention and like this all came together. And like now that is a thing that like, you know, they played like 100 shows this year or whatever. It's like every show they played, they just sounded heavy and in tune and nice.
Better than the one before.
Yeah. And it's like, those are the kinds of things that like, if you focus and pay attention and take this knowledge with you through life, it will improve every other element of your music making experience.
Not to single out any one band, but like Myland is that perfect example of just like a string of making really good decisions for themselves and learning so much along the way and taking what they've learned and applying it to what they're doing in every aspect, whether it's in the studio, whether it's live, or whether it's just like the connections they make when they play shows and they tour and stuff like that. Like I've played a lot of shows with those with Myland specifically, and have gotten pretty friendly with those dudes. And like, I think their age and youthfulness are really helpful in their, you know, just their energy levels. Yeah. But like every time I have a conversation with any of them, it just feels like they're just so stoked to be there. They're so stoked to be part of whatever they're doing. And they treat every show and every opportunity like it's their last. And it like, just go see that band if you live in the area, or just watch videos of them a year ago versus them now. Like they're the like the shiny example of like what a band, at least
what happens when you pay attention.
Yeah, exactly.
What happens when you just pay attention.
Yeah, and you take every morsel of information that you learn along the way and apply it to your situation. And also a great example of four people that feel like they're just like in line with each other. Like all the wheels are turning at the same time, at the same force. So shout out to that band.
Shout out Brampton.
Yeah, shout out Brampton. As we were nearing our 2-hour mark, we should close this off as to preserve some sunlight. But I'll just in the last episode, I kind of asked the question of just like, you know, 3 things you think bands should know about in general. But since we're talking about making records, if you can sum it up succinctly, what are just like the 3
I'll do my best
3 like, you know, most potent pieces of advice that you think a band that maybe doesn't have a lot of studio experience should heavily consider before they take a step into that world?
Okay.
You got 2, that's great. You got 4, that's also
cool.
great, but you know.
My first one is definitely record yourself. Find a way to record yourself, even if it's just a voice notes demo. That is the biggest piece of advice I have. Once you know what you sound like, you have a baseline for how to make that sound more to your liking, right? My second piece of advice would be to just practice for 20 minutes a day. 20 minutes a day. Like that is, you spend 20 minutes a day playing solitaire, like, or whatever, on Instagram, whatever. Like you have 20 minutes to just practice. Do that.
Practice versus rehearse. We're talking about practicing on your own.
We're talking about sitting down with the metronome and just like doing some boring ass fucking whatever, or not finding a song that you like and just trying to match that feel. You know, it can be whatever.
Hugely important way to learn.
Yeah.
Just mimicking your heroes.
And my third thing, something that I have not demonstrated at all on this entire podcast, but try to be chill. Try to take her ease. It's not that serious. We're making music. No one's going to die if you fuck up.
It's supposed to be fun.
It's supposed to be fun. And like, you know, if it's not going the way you want to, don't get mad. Don't get sad. Take a minute. Figure out why. Yes, it's going to be a long road, but you're going to get there. You know, I am one of the dumbest people I know. And I'm figuring it out still. I'm in my 30s now, and I still am like doing this music thing. Anybody can do it for as long as they want to do it if you have the patience.
Yeah. Don't rush anything. You got nothing but time on your hands.
Yeah.
But I think those are 3 great pieces of advice. I should write them out on like a scroll and put it up in the studio or something like that, like Davis's words of wisdom.
The thoughts.
Yeah. But I'm very, very, very thrilled and pleased with everything we talked about today. I'm very, very happy to be in your studio and have this conversation. And I feel like, and this is the case with episode number 1, I feel like we could talk so much more about this subject alone, and it might be worth having a part 2 at some point. But I thank you so much for having this conversation. And is there anything you want to talk about? Anything you want to plug?
Thank you so much for coming by and doing this. I love you very much. I love all the people that I'm just so grateful that I get to do this and like be in this cool community of people that are all making art. Free Palestine,
straight up,
and that's all I got.
All right, thank you, Davis, and we'll hit you with another one at another time. All right, take care.
Goodbye.
And there you have it. Build Your Own Band episode 2 in the bag with Davis Maxwell. I feel like I'm probably going to send this episode to every future band that reaches out to me to make a project, because I just feel like these are just crucial, important things for bands to know before heading into the studio. Whether you're a band that's never recorded in a real studio or never worked with another person recording music, or you're a seasoned band that has multiple real recording experiences, I just feel like everything we talked about is crucial knowledge for an independent band to have when thinking of making a record. I can't thank Davis enough for having this super long conversation with me. I feel like we could probably talk for another 2 hours about this exact topic. And I feel like if we did a future episode, maybe there is room to have a little bit of technical conversation about the ins and outs of recording. Because there are some important things to consider in that realm. But I thought this first episode was most important to just talk about the general kind of concepts around recording and how you as an independent band can best prepare for that scenario. And I mentioned it at the beginning of the episode, and I will mention it again. If you are an independent artist that has a little bit of home recording experience and you want to have a killer sounding demo within minutes of recording it, visit vincesoliveri.com/template to download my demo template now. This demo template is available for Pro Tools, Logic, Ableton, Reaper, and even GarageBand. So once again, that is vincesoliveri.com/template. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. If you're a real one that made it through the gauntlet of listening to a 2+ hour podcast about recording, leave Stone Cold Steve Austin in the comments so I know that you stuck around to the end. I think I'm going to keep a monthly release schedule for the podcast just because I'm doing everything myself and it takes up quite a long time. So thank you for being patient with me. If you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe, leave a comment, follow the podcast on Instagram, buildyourownband_podcast. I think I'm on TikTok and Threads. I have no real idea how that stuff works, but I think accounts exist for those social platforms as well. And if you're listening to it on your podcast platform of choice, please follow, please leave a rating or a review. All of this helps, and I super appreciate if you take the time out to do so. Thank you for listening, and see you on the next one.